Get her out before she embarrasses me. Ethan Whitmore's voice carried farther than he intended, cutting through the soft violin music and the polite laughter beneath 400 crystal lights. For one suspended second, no one moved. Then the champagne glass slipped from his hand. It struck the black marble floor with a sharp crack, and every camera in the Diamond Gala turned toward the woman standing near the entrance. Claire Bennett Whitmore rested one hand over her 8-month belly and held a sealed ivory folder against her coat. She had arrived quietly, dressed in a simple cream gown, her blonde hair pinned back without diamonds, without a stylist, without the kind of spectacle Ethan believed mattered. Beside him, Vanessa Reed wore enough diamonds to light the room by herself, including a deep blue stone at her throat that made Claire forget how to breathe. It had belonged to her mother. Ethan had no right to touch it. He certainly had no right to place it around another woman's neck. Vanessa leaned closer to Ethan with a practiced smile, as if Claire were an awkward stranger who had wandered into the wrong event. "I thought you said she wasn't coming," she murmured. Claire heard every word. So did the nearest reporters. Ethan recovered quickly, smoothing his tuxedo jacket and lifting his chin the way he did before investor meetings. "My wife is tired," he announced. "Pregnancy has been difficult for her. Security will help her home." The lie landed softly, almost elegantly, and that made it worse. Claire looked beyond him at the ballroom she had paid for, the floral installations she had approved, the pediatric hospital models displayed beneath glass, and the auction catalog bearing the crest of the Bennett Diamond Foundation. Ethan had spent weeks calling the evening his triumph. He had praised his connections, his generosity, his vision. He had never once asked why every invoice had been cleared before reaching his desk. A security guard approached Claire with visible hesitation. "Mrs. Whitmore, may I see your invitation?" Claire opened the ivory folder, but not far enough for him to read the documents inside. "My name was removed from the list this afternoon," she said calmly. Ethan gave a humorless laugh. "Because you weren't supposed to be here." Vanessa touched the blue diamond, admiring the reflection in a nearby mirror. Claire watched her fingers brush the stone and felt the baby shift beneath her palm. Not fear, not weakness, a reminder. She had not come to confront a mistress. She had come to authorize $40 million for a maternity and neonatal center that would serve families across 3 states. Yet the man who called her a burden had brought his affair into the room her money had built, wearing her family's legacy around another woman's neck. "Take her outside," Ethan said. Claire met his eyes. "Before I go, tell me something. Do you know who owns that diamond?" Ethan smiled for the cameras. "I do." Across the ballroom, the giant presentation screens flickered. The foundation seal vanished. A new name appeared in white letters 10 feet high. Claire Bennett Whitmore, founder and sole benefactor. The room went silent. Ethan stopped smiling. The silence lasted 3 seconds, but to Ethan it felt like the room had stopped breathing. His eyes moved from the towering screen to Claire, then to the foundation crest glowing beneath her name. Vanessa lowered her hand from the blue diamond, as if the stone had suddenly become too heavy to wear. Cameras clicked faster. Guests whispered. Somewhere near the auction tables, a glass was set down too hard. Ethan stepped toward Claire with a smile, so controlled it looked painful. "There has been a mistake," he said. Claire did not answer him. She looked at the security guard instead and opened the ivory folder. Inside was a signed authorization for $40 million, the final funding required to begin construction on a maternity and neonatal center serving families across New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. The guard read the first page, then immediately stepped aside. "Mrs. Whitmore, I apologize." Claire entered the ballroom without raising her voice. That calm unsettled Ethan more than anger would have. 2 hours earlier, she had arrived through the service entrance because the foundation staff had requested her signature before the auction began. She had expected a private meeting, a quiet approval, and perhaps 10 minutes to watch the event from the back of the room. Instead, the registration coordinator had searched the guest list 3 times before offering an embarrassed explanation. Her name had been removed that afternoon by direct instruction from Ethan Whitmore. Claire had stood beneath the glass awning while winter rain silvered the sidewalk, listening to the music through the closed doors. Through the tall windows, she had seen Ethan posing beside Vanessa beneath a banner that read a future built on generosity. Vanessa had laughed for the cameras and told a reporter that Ethan was entering a new chapter one free from old limitations. Claire had looked down at the folder in her hands. Every floral arrangement, every catering invoice, every polished display case, and every scholarship announced that night had been paid through accounts she controlled. Yet Ethan had erased her name with a single telephone call. He believed ownership belonged to whoever stood closest to the cameras. Claire knew better. Inside the folder, beneath the funding authorization, rested a second document. It was a protective clause created years earlier by her mother, allowing the foundation chairwoman to suspend any event, freeze any transfer, and reclaim any item if charitable property was misused. Claire had never activated it. She had never imagined she would need to. Now she crossed the ballroom while hundreds of guests watched Ethan struggle to recover his authority. "Turn off that screen," he ordered a technician. The technician did not move. "I said turn it off." Daniel Brooks, the auction director, approached with careful formality. "Mr. Whitmore, the display is controlled by the Bennett Foundation." Ethan glanced at Claire. "Then tell them to remove it." Daniel held his gaze. "She is the Bennett Foundation." The words traveled through the room like a cold draft. Vanessa looked down at the diamond again. Claire noticed the tiny serial marking beneath the clasp, one she had memorized as a child while sitting beside her mother at charity auctions. The Bennett Blue was not personal jewelry. It was protected foundation property. Claire closed the folder and rested both hands over her belly. She had entered the gala prepared to give $40 million away. Now she realized someone had already taken something that was never theirs. 6 years earlier, Ethan Whitmore had owned one borrowed desk, 2 tailored suits, and a vision too expensive for any bank to trust. Claire remembered the first office clearly, a narrow room above a dry cleaner in Brooklyn where the radiator clicked through winter meetings and the windows shook whenever a truck passed below. Ethan had stood beside a whiteboard covered in numbers, speaking about towers, hotels, and neighborhoods he believed he could transform. He had looked at Claire as if she were the only person in the world who could see what he saw. She had believed in him before anyone else did. That was why she never told him the full truth about the Bennett name. Her mother had taught her that inherited wealth could attract attention faster than character, and Claire wanted one part of her life untouched by family influence. She wanted to know whether Ethan loved the woman who brought him coffee, corrected his proposals, and stayed beside him when every lender said no. When he proposed in their small apartment, he promised that he would build everything with his own hands. Claire had mistaken pride for integrity. She did not hand him a fortune. She did something quieter. Through a private investment firm, she arranged his first bridge loan. Through a foundation affiliate, she introduced him to a hospital board searching for a developer. When payroll came due during his second year, an anonymous investor purchased a minority stake at exactly the amount Ethan needed. He celebrated each rescue as proof that the market finally recognized his talent. Claire celebrated beside him and kept her name off every document he might see. She told herself that love did not need credit. The first Whitmore building rose 12 stories over the East River, all glass and confidence. Ethan placed his name above the entrance. Claire stood in the crowd at the opening ceremony, for rows behind the cameras, and listened as he thanked mentors, bankers, and consultants. He never mentioned the wife who had reviewed every budget at the kitchen table. At the time, she had not minded. Success had made him lighter then. He laughed more. He still reached for her hand in public. But each new project changed something small. His gratitude became expectation. His ambition became entitlement. By the time Whitmore Properties occupied 3 floors in Midtown, Ethan had stopped asking how difficult problems disappeared. He simply assumed they would. Claire continued solving them because she thought marriage meant protecting the future they shared. Then she became pregnant. For a few weeks, Ethan acted delighted. He ordered an expensive crib, announced the news at a board dinner, and spoke proudly about his legacy. But as Claire grew tired and began declining late events, his language shifted. He called her absence inconvenient. He said maternity dresses did not fit the image surrounding his brand. He suggested she remain home during investor gatherings because people wanted confidence, not complications. Claire had heard those words without answering. She had watched the man she helped elevate reduce her to something that needed to be hidden. Now, standing beneath the crystal lights of the gala, she finally understood the pattern. Ethan had never seen support as sacrifice. He saw it as evidence that the world naturally arranged itself around him. Across the room, he was speaking urgently to Daniel Brooks. trying to regain control of the evening. Vanessa remained beside him, one hand covering the Bennett blue. Claire opened the ivory folder once more and studied a financial report Olivia Grant had sent that morning. One line had troubled her then. Now it felt like a warning. Ethan had listed the Gala Foundation account as collateral for a private hotel acquisition in Miami. He was not merely borrowing Claire's reputation. He was preparing to risk money promised to mothers and newborn children. Claire looked up slowly. The empire she had built in silence was no longer protecting her husband. It was protecting him from consequences. That ended tonight. Claire did not move toward Ethan. She moved toward Vanessa. The difference was subtle, but everyone nearest the auction floor noticed it. Vanessa noticed it too. Her smile tightened as Claire approached, and one hand rose instinctively to the blue diamond resting against her throat. "That necklace belongs to the Bennett Foundation," Claire said. Her voice was quiet enough that Vanessa had to lean closer, which meant the microphones near the media wall did not catch the exchange. Vanessa glanced toward Ethan, but he was still arguing with Daniel Brooks near the control station. "Ethan gave it to me," she replied. "Then Ethan gave you something he did not own." Vanessa laughed softly, the kind of laugh designed to make another woman feel foolish. "You really expect me to believe you control all of this because your name appeared on a screen?" Claire looked at the stone, not at her. The Bennett blue had been worn by her mother at every major foundation event for nearly 20 years. Claire remembered sitting beside her as a child, counting the tiny white diamonds around the center stone while donors filled a ballroom much like this one. Her mother had once told her that jewelry could carry memory, but only people decided whether that memory became vanity or service. Now the necklace sat above Vanessa's designer gown like a trophy. Claire felt no jealousy, only clarity. "Where did he get it?" she asked. Vanessa folded her arms. "From a private collection." "Which collection?" "His." Claire reached into the ivory folder and removed a single photograph showing the necklace inside the foundation vault, along with its identification number and legal designation. Vanessa studied it for half a second, then looked away. "That was enough." "You knew," Claire said. "I knew Ethan wanted me to wear something important tonight." Vanessa lowered her voice. "He said the necklace had been sitting in your safe for years and that you would never have the confidence to wear it properly." The words were meant to wound. Instead, they confirmed what Claire needed. Her telephone rested inside her coat pocket with the voice recorder already running. Activated the moment she saw the serial marking beneath the clasp. "Did he open the safe himself?" Claire asked. Vanessa smiled again, mistaking calm questions for weakness. "Of course he did. He knows the code. He said married people share everything. Although I suppose he does not plan to keep sharing with you much longer." Claire let the silence stretch. Behind them, the violinists continued playing, unaware that a legal confession was unfolding less than 20 feet away. "And did he tell you the necklace could not be transferred?" Claire asked. "He told me it would be mine after the divorce." Vanessa stepped closer. "He also told me you would sign whatever papers he put in front of you, because you always do." Claire looked toward Ethan. He had finally stopped arguing and was watching them now, his expression sharp with concern. He knew Vanessa well enough to recognize when she was talking too much. He started across the ballroom. Vanessa followed Claire's gaze and mistook Ethan's urgency for devotion. "You should leave before this becomes more embarrassing," she whispered. Claire took out her telephone and stopped the recording. The small chimes sounded almost delicate beneath the music. Vanessa's face changed. "What did you just do?" "I asked you where the necklace came from." Claire slipped the telephone back into her pocket. "And you answered." Ethan reached them seconds later. "Claire, enough." He placed himself between the two women, lowering his voice as cameras turned in their direction. "You are disrupting a charity event." Claire looked past him at the hospital model displayed under glass. "No, Ethan. I am protecting one." His expression hardened. "Give me the folder." Claire held it closer to her chest. "Why?" "Because you do not understand the documents inside it." She almost smiled. The folder contained her authorization, her mother's protective clause, the foundation ownership record, and the report showing Ethan had attempted to use restricted funds as collateral. He still believed ignorance belonged to her. "I understand them perfectly," Claire said. Olivia Grant appeared beside the auction stage, carrying a black leather portfolio. Their eyes met across the room. Olivia gave one small nod. The evidence was complete. Claire turned back to Vanessa and pointed gently toward the necklace. "Take it off." Vanessa looked at Ethan for permission. Ethan did not answer. For the first time that night, both of them understood that the diamond was no longer decoration. It was proof. Olivia Grant reached Claire before Ethan could speak again. She carried no dramatic expression, only the calm of someone who had already read every page and knew exactly where the truth would lead. "The board is ready to suspend the accounts," she said quietly. "The foundation can recover the necklace tonight, freeze the collateral transfer, and notify the authorities before the auction begins." Ethan stared at her. "Who are you?" Olivia opened the black portfolio. "Claire's attorney." The answer changed the air around him. For years, Ethan had treated Claire's patience as permission. Now patience had arrived with documentation. Olivia turned to Claire. "You have enough evidence. You do not have to give him another opportunity." Claire looked past them at the hospital model beneath the glass display. Tiny rooms had been built into it, including neonatal care suites, family counseling offices, and a chapel no larger than her hand. $40 million would turn that model into a real place where frightened parents could sit beside their newborn children. She would not let Ethan turn that purpose into entertainment. "No police during the gala," Claire said. Olivia studied her face. "Claire, he used restricted assets." "I know. He attempted to pledge charitable funds for a private acquisition." "I know that too." Claire rested a hand over her belly as the baby moved again. "But 400 people came here to support a hospital, not to watch my marriage collapse." Ethan gave a short, relieved breath, believing mercy meant surrender. Finally, some sense. Claire turned to him. "You have one chance." His relief disappeared. "Return the necklace to Daniel Brooks. Withdraw the Miami collateral filing. Correct the public statement you made about this event. Then leave quietly." Vanessa looked at Ethan in disbelief. "You cannot be serious." Claire did not look at her. "If those things happen before the first auction lot closes, the foundation will handle the rest privately." Ethan stepped closer, keeping his smile in place for the guests watching from nearby tables. "You do not give me deadlines. Tonight I do. This is my event." "No. It is a hospital fundraiser held in a building owned by the foundation, using a collection owned by the foundation, supported by donors invited through the foundation." Claire paused. "You were given a speaking role." Ethan's face tightened. Vanessa touched his arm. "Do not let her humiliate you." Claire heard the sentence and understood why Vanessa had been so confident all evening. She did not need facts. She only needed Ethan's pride. Ethan looked toward the screens, then toward the reporters. "I will not walk out of a room I built." Olivia removed a document from her portfolio. "Then sign a statement confirming your claim that the necklace is your personal property." Claire glanced at her attorney. Olivia's eyes remained steady. The request was simple. The consequences were not. Ethan took the page without reading it. "Gladly." Claire stopped him before the pen touched paper. "Read the ownership section." He looked at her with open contempt. "I know what belongs to me." "That is not what I asked." Several phones were now pointed in their direction. Daniel Brooks stood near the stage, waiting. The orchestra had reached the end of its piece, leaving the ballroom in a silence filled only by whispers and the distant clink of glassware. Ethan signed his name in one hard motion. "There. Now remove my wife's name from the screens and escort her out." Olivia took the document back and placed it inside her portfolio. Claire felt something inside her settle. Not satisfaction. Not anger. Finality. "You were offered a private exit," she said. "You chose a public record." Ethan gave a dismissive laugh. Then he turned toward a security supervisor standing nearby. "Search her bag and that folder. She may have taken foundation materials she was not authorized to possess." The supervisor did not move. "Sir, Mrs. Whitmore is the foundation chairwoman." Ethan pointed toward Claire as though volume could rewrite authority. "Then verify it." Claire handed the ivory folder to Olivia but kept her telephone. The live stream camera above the media wall remained active, its red light glowing steadily. Every word had been recorded. Every accusation had been witnessed. Olivia leaned close to Claire and whispered, "He has now challenged your ownership, confirmed his claim to the necklace, and requested a search of the person legally controlling the event." Claire looked toward the stage as Daniel lifted the microphone. The first auction lot had not yet opened. Ethan still had 30 seconds to stop himself. He used them to adjust his tuxedo and place his arm around Vanessa. The final choice had been made. Daniel Brooks waited until the final echo of Ethan's command faded beneath the chandeliers. Then he lifted the microphone and welcomed the guests as though the evening had not just changed direction. His voice remained warm, practiced, and steady, but Claire noticed the way he kept one hand near the sealed envelope on the podium. The first auction item appeared on the screens, a pair of vintage diamond earrings donated by a Broadway producer. Bidding began at $50,000. Around the ballroom, paddles rose slowly. Ethan watched none of it. He stood beside Vanessa, staring at Olivia's black portfolio, as if he could force the signed statement back out of existence. "Give me that document," he said. Olivia closed the clasp. "It is now part of the foundation record. I signed it under pressure. Claire asked you to read it. My wife has no authority to question me." Claire heard the words clearly. So did the live stream microphone positioned less than 10 feet away. A red light continued to glow above the media wall. Ethan followed her gaze and finally noticed it. For the first time that evening, uncertainty crossed his face. "Turn off the broadcast," he ordered. Daniel did not interrupt the bidding. A woman near the center table raised the offer to $120,000. Applause moved through the room, soft but genuine. The hospital fund was growing while Ethan's control was shrinking. Claire stepped closer to him. "You can still return the necklace before the first lot closes." Vanessa tightened her fingers around the blue stone. "It was a gift." "A gift can only be given by its owner," Claire replied. Ethan lowered his voice. "Stop pretending this is about charity. You are angry because I brought Vanessa." Claire looked at him for a long moment. There had been a time when that accusation would have broken something inside her. Tonight it only revealed how little he understood. This is about a protected asset, restricted funds, and a false collateral filing. Ethan glanced toward Olivia. "She put those words in your mouth." "No, I put those protections in your company." His expression changed. Claire continued before he could interrupt. "The anonymous investor who secured your first development loan was Bennett Capital. The trust that covered payroll during your second year belonged to the foundation. The holding company that now owns 38% of Whitmore Properties answers to me." Vanessa turned toward Ethan. "You said you own the company." "I do." His answer came too quickly. Claire opened the ivory folder and removed the report Olivia had sent that morning. "Then explain why you pledged the Gala account as collateral for the Miami hotel." Ethan looked at the page but did not take it. "That was a temporary financing structure, using restricted charitable funds. Funds are funds until they are deployed." Olivia spoke for the first time in several minutes. "That sentence is being recorded." Ethan looked toward the live stream camera again. Several reporters had moved closer. Their expressions were no longer curious. They were attentive. He could have stopped. He could have lowered his voice, returned the necklace, and allowed Olivia to guide him toward a private room. Instead, he stepped into the open space between the auction tables and raised his chin. "I made every decision that built Whitmore Properties," he announced. "Any account connected to my company is mine to use." The bidding stopped. Daniel lowered the gavel without striking it. Claire felt the room turn toward Ethan as one body. Olivia removed the signed statement from her portfolio and held it beside the collateral report. One document claimed ownership of the diamond. The other showed his attempt to control money legally reserved for the hospital. His signature connected both. "Thank you," Olivia said quietly. Ethan frowned. "For what?" Claire closed the folder. "For answering every question we had." The ballroom screens went dark. Daniel opened the sealed envelope on the podium. Ethan reached for Vanessa's hand, but she was already stepping away from him. Then the first line of the foundation announcement appeared in white across the black screens, and Daniel began to read the name behind every dollar in the room. Daniel looked down at the card in his hands, then out across the ballroom. Tonight's principal benefactor, founder, and controlling chairwoman of the Bennett Diamond Foundation is Claire Bennett Whitmore. The words settled over the room with more force than applause. The screens brightened behind him, revealing photographs of the maternity center, financial commitments, and a timeline of donations stretching back 6 years. Claire's name appeared beside every major contribution. Ethan stared at the display as though he were seeing his own life translated into a language he could no longer control. Vanessa slowly released the blue diamond and took another step away from him. Daniel continued. "The foundation also holds the controlling interest in Bennett Capital, the investment group responsible for financing several early Whitmore Properties developments." A murmur passed through the guests. Bankers looked toward one another. Board members reached for their telephones. Reporters shifted closer to the stage. Ethan stepped forward. "This is misleading." Daniel lowered the card. "The records are verified." "Then the records are incomplete." Ethan turned toward the audience with the confidence of a man who had spent years surviving difficult rooms by speaking first and speaking longest. "My wife chose to hide these arrangements from me. Whatever money moved through her family accounts became part of our marriage and part of my company." Olivia remained beside Claire, silent. Claire knew why. Ethan was not being interrupted because every sentence carried him farther into the truth. He pointed toward the hospital display. "I organized this gala. I brought the donors. I created the public interest." Daniel answered from the podium. "The foundation selected the guest list, secured the venue, and underwrote the event." Ethan ignored him. "And the necklace was in my home." Claire finally spoke. "In a foundation safe. A safe I could open. That did not make the contents yours." Ethan looked toward the cameras. His face had lost its polished calm, but his voice grew louder. "I took the necklace because Vanessa needed something appropriate for the evening. Claire had not worn it in years." Vanessa turned sharply. "You told me it was yours." Ethan glanced at her, irritated by the interruption. It would have been hours after the divorce. The room became completely still. Claire did not move. She let the statement remain where he had placed it, in front of donors, attorneys, board members, and a live stream audience. Olivia opened her portfolio and removed the signed ownership declaration. "For the record, Mr. Whitmore has now confirmed that he removed the necklace from a protected safe, transferred it to another person, and expected to claim it through a future divorce settlement." Ethan realized too late what he had said. "That is not what I meant." "It is exactly what you said," Olivia replied. Vanessa unclasped the necklace with trembling fingers and held it out toward Claire. "I did not know." Claire did not take it. Daniel came down from the stage carrying a velvet case and received the necklace on behalf of the foundation. The blue stone disappeared inside, and the clasp closed with a soft click. Ethan watched it go as if the sound marked the closing of a door. Then he turned back to Claire. "You planned this." "No," she said. "I planned to fund a hospital." The answer was quieter than his accusations, but it reached every corner of the ballroom. Ethan pointed at the financial report in Olivia's hand. "The Miami hotel would have increased the company's value. I used the Gala account temporarily because the transfer timing was convenient." A man seated near the front stood. He was the foundation's chief financial officer. "Restricted charitable funds cannot be used as bridge financing." Ethan looked around the room, searching for support. None came. Claire stepped toward the stage, one hand resting over her belly. The guests parted for her without being asked. She had spent years standing outside the photographs while Ethan occupied the center. Now she walked beneath the white lights with no diamonds around her neck and no need to prove she belonged there. Daniel offered her the microphone. Claire accepted it, but before she could speak, the ballroom doors opened. 3 members of the Whitmore Properties board entered with the company's general counsel. Behind them stood 2 financial investigators carrying sealed document cases. Ethan's face drained of color. Claire looked at him once, not with triumph, but with the final recognition reserved for someone who had been given every chance to choose differently. The gala had not become a scene because Claire exposed him. It became one because Ethan could not stop exposing himself. The Whitmore Properties general counsel stopped 10 feet from Ethan and opened a slim gray folder. "By unanimous emergency vote, the board has suspended you from all executive duties pending a full financial review." Ethan looked from the attorney to the 3 board members behind him. "You cannot suspend the founder." One of the directors, Margaret Sloan, answered without raising her voice. "The founder does not outrank fiduciary law." The words landed harder than any accusation Claire could have made. Ethan turned toward the financial investigators. "This is a private corporate matter." The taller investigator displayed his identification. "Restricted charitable funds are not private when they are represented as collateral in a commercial filing." Olivia handed him copies of the Miami report, Ethan's signed ownership statement, and the foundation records for the Bennett Blue. Each page moved from one set of hands to another with quiet precision. There was no shouting, no spectacle beyond the truth being organized in the correct order. Ethan looked toward Claire as though she could still stop it. "Tell them this was a misunderstanding." Claire held the microphone loosely at her side. "I told you what would happen if you refused to correct it. You gave me 30 seconds in front of 400 people. I gave you 6 years. The ballroom went still again. Ethan opened his mouth, but no answer came. Claire stepped onto the stage and faced the guests. She could feel the weight of their attention, the baby resting low beneath her ribs, and the cold edge of the microphone against her palm. "This evening was created to fund a maternity and neonatal center," she said. "That purpose has not changed." She glanced toward Daniel. "The auction will continue. Every verified donation will remain protected. No hospital funds will be used for any private acquisition, legal dispute, or corporate rescue." Applause began near the back of the room. It grew slowly, not for revenge, but for reassurance. Donors who had been uncertain returned to their seats. Daniel reopened the first auction lot. The Broadway producer who donated the earrings raised her paddle and doubled the previous bid. The room breathed again. Ethan did not. Vanessa stood several feet away from him, her hands empty now. "You told me Claire had no money of her own," she whispered. Ethan ignored her and focused on the board. "Whitmore Properties cannot complete the Hudson Project without me." Margaret Sloan closed her folder. "The Hudson Project was guaranteed by Bennett Capital. That guarantee has been placed under review." Ethan turned to Claire. "You are destroying thousands of jobs to punish me." Claire shook her head. "The projects will continue under independent management. The employees will be paid. The vendors will be protected." She paused. "Only your authority has been suspended." His final defense disappeared. He had expected her to act from anger, because anger would have allowed him to call her irrational. Instead, she had protected the workers, the donors, the hospital, and even the company that carried his name. She had removed only the person who endangered them. Olivia handed him another envelope. "These are preliminary separation documents and a preservation notice covering all marital and corporate records." Ethan stared at the envelope without taking it. "You planned a divorce before tonight." Claire answered honestly. "I plan to ask questions tomorrow." "And now?" "Now the answers are public." The investigator requested Ethan's company telephone and access card. He surrendered both after the general counsel informed him that refusal would be documented. Vanessa moved toward the exit, but Olivia stopped her with a polite request for contact information regarding the necklace. Vanessa provided it, then left without looking back. Ethan remained beneath the crystal lights, surrounded by the empire he had once believed answered only to him. The auctioneer's gavel came down. The earrings sold for $250,000. Applause filled the ballroom. Claire watched the hospital total rise on the screen, while Ethan's name disappeared from the corporate access system on Olivia's tablet. He had arrived believing the room proved his power. By midnight, the only thing it proved was how much had survived without him. 6 months later, Claire stood beneath a different kind of light. There were no chandeliers, no camera flashes, and no polished marble reflecting people who wanted to be seen. Morning sunlight poured through the windows of the Bennett Center for Mothers and Newborns, warming the pale blue walls and the quiet row of bassinets beyond the glass. In her arms, her daughter slept with one small hand curled against the collar of Claire's coat. She had named her Hope Bennett, not Whitmore. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks earlier. Ethan kept his freedom, but little else that had depended on borrowed authority. The financial review proved that Whitmore Properties could survive under responsible leadership, so Claire refused every proposal to dismantle it. Employees kept their jobs. Contractors were paid. The Hudson Project continued under Margaret Sloan and an independent board. Ethan's shares were reduced through lawful settlements, penalties, and the repayment of funds he had improperly pledged. Claire did not take his company. She simply stopped protecting him from the cost of his own decisions. Vanessa cooperated with investigators and returned every foundation item in her possession. Her name disappeared from society pages almost as quickly as it had appeared. Ethan sent Claire 4 letters. The first blamed her. The second blamed the board. The third blamed fear, pressure, and bad advice. The fourth contained only 5 words. "I did not know you." Claire read it once, then placed it inside the legal archive with the rest of the marriage records. He was finally correct, but too late for the truth to repair anything. Daniel Brooks approached her near the hospital atrium, carrying a small velvet case. "The auction committee is ready," he said. Claire looked toward the gathering below, where doctors, nurses, donors, and families waited beside a simple podium. Inside the case rested the Bennett blue, cleaned, restored, and returned to the purpose her mother had chosen for it. The foundation board had offered to place it in a museum. Claire had made another decision. The diamond would be sold, and every dollar would support prenatal care, emergency housing, and legal services for mothers facing abandonment. Daniel opened the case. Blue light moved across the ceiling like a quiet memory. "Are you certain?" he asked. Claire looked down at Hope. "My mother never wanted it locked away." The auction lasted 9 minutes. A private collector purchased the necklace for $12 million, then surprised the room by donating it back to the foundation for future exhibitions. Applause rose around Claire, but she did not look toward the cameras. She watched a young mother across the atrium receive the keys to temporary housing while a nurse carried her newborn beside her. That was what the diamond was worth. Not status, not possession, a safe room, a medical bill paid. A door opened before someone had to beg. Later, Claire walked through the neonatal wing alone with Hope asleep against her shoulder. Behind the glass, tiny monitors glowed beside families keeping vigil through the night. The building hummed with soft voices, careful footsteps, and the steady rhythm of machines protecting fragile lives. Claire stopped at a window overlooking Manhattan. Somewhere among those towers stood the offices where Ethan once believed power meant having his name above every entrance. Hope stirred and closed her fingers around Claire's thumb. Claire smiled, not because she had won, but because she no longer needed anyone else to lose. Outside, the city glittered like scattered diamonds. Inside, one small heartbeat answered another. Some people spend their lives collecting proof that they own the room. Claire had learned that real power was leaving the lights on for those still trying to find the door.